2021. Welcome to everyone. The agendas of today's meeting are on the wall at the entrance to the chambers. Please remember to turn off your cell phones to ensure a complete record of the board's actions. We ask that each individual wishing to speak clearly state your name and spell your last name for the clerk. I will ask the board members to introduce themselves in a moment, but I would first like to recognize that we have a new board member with us today. Hi. Lindsay Discus Harrison has a background well suited for this board. She is a real estate broker and is the owner of Discus Harrison Realty. She has extensive real estate experience with a focus on first-time home buyers. She previously worked for the City of Largo, administering their down payment assistance program as the city's housing finance specialist. In that role, she worked with single-family residents as well as multifamily developments and subrecipient programs. Now, in addition to running her business, she is a certified housing counselor and teaches home buyer education workshops for Tampa Bay Community Development Corporation. She also runs a networking group that she started in 2012 for business owners that are also mothers, where they network and refer business to mother-owned and women-owned businesses. So, Lindsay, please lead us off and introduce yourself and state the field you represent.
I'm Lindsay Discus Harrison, and I am a broker, and I represent the role for real estate.
Okay. Ms. Hepting.
Camille Hepting. I represent the employers within the City of Clearwater.
Linda's not here. Ms. Camacho is not here.
I'm Gabriela Camacho, and I represent the affordable construction industry.
Ms. Santiago is not here. Mr. Chenault.
Kevin Chenault, representing the nonprofit industry.
And I'm Pete Scalia, and I represent low-income people. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of the board's October 13th, 2020 meeting. Is that right? That's how long it's been since we met?
Pardon me, Pete?
October 13th was our last meeting?
Yeah, we had one scheduled for December, it was canceled. Your role was in the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee of.
Oh, that's right. I was going to say, it seems like only yesterday I was talking to you guys. May I have a motion of approval?
I'll move.
A second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Item 3 is citizens be heard. If there is anyone here to speak to items not on today's agenda, if yes, please step to the podium, state your name, and spell your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak on a subject that is not on today's agenda. Seeing no one come forward, we will move on. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't move fast enough.
You're rushing this.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Kathleen Beckman, and I'm a resident as well as city council member. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for your service. I know this is all volunteer, and I'm looking forward to working with you throughout this year. So thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you. If there's no one else coming forward, then we will move on to the next item. Item number 4 is to discuss the Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board's role as it relates to workforce and affordable housing. Mr. Lane will get us started with a brief presentation.
Thank you.
Stay
Chuck
with the
Lane.
script.
I am Chuck Lane, Assistant Director of the Economic Development and Housing Department. And Ms. Discus Harrison, is now that we tell you this is an unpaid position.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a discussion. I provided you with a copy of the ordinance that establishes the NAHAB's rules, purpose, and duties and responsibilities. I gave you this to provide context for the discussion we're about to have, and we'll go over that ordinance in a little bit more detail in a moment. This board was created to assist staff with our administration of state and federal funds. You are all involved in our annual planning process. Staff takes applications for funding, and the applicants are required to deliver presentations to you. every year. A technical review committee reviews and ranks those applications. Mr. Chenault sits on that committee. When he's no longer able to do that, he will be replaced with another board member. At a later meeting, you're asked to approve the staff recommended allocations, and then a month later, you're asked to recommend council approval of our annual action plan. And that's our financial plan for our federal funds. We're beginning that process shortly. We're going to open up the application period next week on Wednesday. Be open for a month. The board also helps us to review the various plans and reports that we produce throughout the year. Staff produces these documents and we ask you to review them, and we discuss them with you publicly in this forum. We're also required to hold public hearings. The board provides a forum for that as well. Each board seat represents a segment of the community, as you know. This is designed this way so that you as a body adequately represent the citizens that our programs are intended to serve. We cannot do this. What we can't do is take away any of these functions from the board. We need the board to continue to function to serve the purpose for which the board was created, and that is to manage the funds, to help staff in managing the funds that we get. Most of the other boards are, this board is different than our other advisory boards. Most of the other boards are strictly advisory boards. The NAHAB is structured to perform the responsibilities that I just outlined, which deviates really somewhat from strictly an advisory role. Other boards aren't based in a regulatory world like ours is. They're set up more to advise staff and city council. There's been some discussion as to whether these boards are providing this service to the extent they can. And for that reason, the city manager has asked the board liaisons, including me, to open a dialogue with their board to discuss the roles and responsibilities. So I'm not sure where this discussion is going to go today, but discussing change right now is interesting because we're dealing with some things right now that make us pause and ask ourselves, can the NAHAB play a more intensive role? We're navigating through some uncharted waters here. The world we live in right now has cast a spotlight on how government addresses community development and affordable housing. Homelessness has gripped much of the country, certain portions of the country. I think we manage our Clearwater's homeless population very well, but we need to continue to do that. I think more on the spotlight for Clearwater is the unprecedented, and I think it's unprecedented, the crisis of housing affordability. This is well known across the state and the country. We in Clearwater have a particular need because we rely so heavily on the tourism and hospitality industry, which produces low-income jobs. There's no question that our citizens are feeling the full brunt of the housing crisis. So what I want to do now is I want to pull up that ordinance that I mentioned to you earlier, and we'll just briefly go through the board's roles and responsibilities. So the first portion of this ordinance discusses the board makeup. We don't need to go into that too deeply. But when we get down to powers and duties, I'll just go over these quickly, and we'll discuss how you serve these purposes. Review the programs of the city which are directed to improving the physical environment and lifestyle of low and moderate income people, assisted by the various federal, state, and county housing programs and community development programs the city receives by A, assessing neighborhood needs, B, formulating neighborhood goals and objectives, and C, establishing priorities and projects within the neighborhoods. So I think the board really fills this purpose in our creation of the consolidated plan. Because remember, the consolidated plan sets out our goals and objectives for a 5-year period. And then the annual action plan, we create projects and activities to get the funding out. Those projects and activities are in line with the goals and objectives of the comp plan. So the comp plan and the AAP, the annual action plan, are tied very tightly together, okay? D&E, monitoring programs and evaluating programs. I think the board's role in that is in your approval of our various plans, our various reports that we produce throughout the year. The monitoring and evaluation of programs shall at minimum include the following activities: attending and participating in public hearings regarding the programs. Of course, that's exactly what this forum provides. Reviewing condition data, I believe that's covered in our con plan. Reporting citizen reactions to programs, projects and programs. Again, our reporting, our CAPER, we do go through a fairly rigorous public outreach campaign when we do our comp plan, so that's built right into what we do. Reviewing goals and objectives and recommending priorities for the order in which activities are to be undertaken. I believe our AAP is really where your role is there. And you make recommendations to city manager and city council regarding such programs. And this may be where your discussion is centered later when I turn it over to you. And then 4, we don't need to go into that. That is the board's role in serving on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. We just went through that. We don't need to relive it. I think we had some good discussion there. Ms. Dykes Harrison, for your information, that the AHAC, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, is required by state statute because we have funds from the State Housing Initiative Partnership Program, SHIP. We talk in acronyms in government, so you're gonna have to get used to that. So what that board does is it's an 11-member board, and the 7 members of this board fill those seats, and we get 4 additional folks, and they're tasked with reviewing policies and procedures to see if any of our policies and procedures are prohibitive of affordable housing. They look for incentives to create affordable housing, changes in policy, stuff like that. So that used to be every 3 years was the requirement. Now we're doing it annually. And the other change to that this year was now we have an elected official on our board, and Ms. Beckman, who you met a moment ago, serves in that capacity. So that's really the extent of the ordinance as it relates to the discussion we're going to have today. So I'll open it up to you all. Conversation can go wherever you take it. As staff, Denise and I are here, and we're going to have to be cognizant of what we do in our capacity as staff. If the board is calling for something that takes time and resources that we don't have, I'm going to have to call your attention to that. We'll provide feedback. Ms. Sullivan is here. She's always ready to crack the whip if we get out of line. You don't want that to happen. So I'll turn it over to you all. I'm happy to, interested in the conversation.
Thank you, Jeff. I guess the one question I might ask is, in making reference to what you had said about the city manager saying, could we have a discussion maybe on what the advisory boards can or cannot do to bring to the city council? What is the possibility, and I don't know if this violates the sunshine laws or something, of having an opportunity for an advisory board to meet with the council in an informal setting where you could just have a discussion around the table about things that are concerning to this board that we could discuss directly with the council. Like I said, informally, that doesn't carry any weight, that at least then they know what share our major concerns with. Is that a possibility, or because of the sunshine law, no, never going to happen, don't even think about it?
It's a great question. What we can't do is sit around at the table with the council and have a discussion, if it's not a public forum. That's sunshine law. We can't do that. But what we can do, and it's something that has come to Denise and I's attention recently, some of the other boards, not all of them, they deliver an annual presentation to council. The chair delivers that presentation. I think that's something that we should consider implementing. It's a good way for the chair to let council know what the board is working on, and even have a dialogue with council at the dais about, is council interested in something else or something more. We haven't done that, but I think it's something we may try to take on with the next chair. You're going to miss out on that, Pete. Your term is going to end today.
I'm okay with that, I think.
But I think it would be a good exercise. Okay. I do.
I like that idea. The one thing I would want to make sure that we do before that occurs is that we have a board discussion at one of our meetings so that we're all on the same page moving forward. My one concern about going before the council would be, is it the board speaking or is it the people speaking? And we would need to be speaking as a board and coming with recommendations as a board, not just me as nonprofit representative, we'd need to come to a consensus. So I think that would take at least a meeting for us to discuss that at one of our monthly meetings before that presentation.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the chair would speak on behalf of the board.
Or to follow up on what Kevin said, because I agree with you 100% on that, Kevin. Maybe what we could do is take the last 5 or 10 minutes as let's assume we were going to make a presentation to the council in June. Maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes of a meeting beginning in May or in April, we could discuss that amongst ourselves and then say, what do we want to present, A? How do we all feel about it? So we know that going in, when we make the presentation to the person who's ever going to make the presentation, you're speaking for us, and here's what we're saying, and these are our concerns addressing to the council. I think that would be great so that we're all on board the same page.
I can add that as an agenda item prior to that presentation. So it'll be specifically agended, and we'll definitely have that conversation. I think it's a great point. Oh, excuse me.
Good morning, members. Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank you personally for taking your time and volunteering for this board. It's very important. All our advisory boards are important, so I don't really get a chance to come before you. But in terms of the question regarding meeting with council, yes, it would be a joint special work session or a special meeting. So depending on what the nature of the discussion is, if there's action to be taken or that you're requesting council, then it would be a special joint meeting. Otherwise, it would be a joint work session between the two bodies, because the two bodies would have to meet in according to sunshine law, so in the public. I think that was the main thing that I really wanted to stress. So it is possible. It has been done with other boards. So if that is something, and I think the idea of first meeting as a group, and that way when you meet together as two collegial bodies, but all members of the bodies can speak. So it's not just a presentation from the chair on behalf of the collegial body, but I think that's a good idea to first come together, have a meeting, see what it is that you are, as a board, wanting to discuss with the council. But it can be done.
Thank you. So I guess, would we have to make a motion on something like that, or what do we do to take that a step forward?
I would believe the board would need to make a motion to request that meeting with council.
I think the most appropriate motion would be to motion to direct your board liaison to schedule a meeting with council, and then I can bring that up to the council at a meeting, and then we'll coordinate the date so that it's convenient for everybody.
Okay. Then could someone make a motion that Mr. Lane make an appointment in the future, after we've had a chance to discuss what we would like to present to the board, to set up that type of a meeting with the board?
I make a motion for Mr. Lane to set up a meeting with council.
Second?
I'll second it.
Then can we vote? All in favor?
So may I ask, is that something you're asking me to do at this time, or is that something that, as we talk through issues with the board and we determine there's a time to do it, we do it at that time? Is this?
Yeah, I think we have to have enough time on this. It's not something we want to do immediately.
Okay.
We want to be able to direct you on a subject that may be, that we are talking about, that we want to then bring that to the board in a work session.
Okay.
Is that the proper way to say it? Yes. Okay, so that would be what the motion is? A second?
I second.
And,
So just point of clarification, the motion is to set up a work session in the future with the board. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
that's the motion.
And that's separate from the conversation we were having about a presentation from the chair? Correct.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. My instinct would be not to make this motion right now, but to make that motion when we're ready to have that meeting. That's just my instinct, would be to hold that motion until we know there's a conversation we want to have. And that could occur next week or next month.
Well, no, I think, I'm sorry, point of clarification. I think what we're saying is we're making a motion so that if we get to a point in the future where we are deciding that we would like to maybe bring something to the board in a work session. We've already made, that's okay, we can do that, because then we
So-
just give Chuck the directions to make that meeting happen. Yes?
Yeah, so you're saying if at some point in the future, the board decides there is a matter they want to have, and they want to have a discussion about it with the council, at that time, we'll set that up.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And we know somebody can decide, hey, let's make this be the meeting, and Chuck can go forward with that.
Okay, I have a quick comment. Since this whole conversation was started by the city manager wanting to know how the advisory boards were working and if there was any updates to be done, maybe that would actually be the right time to have that exact same conversation with council to say, what do you as a governing body for a city expect from us, so that we would know also where to go, and that would have to happen as soon as possible, just so that we could get, working on whatever their expectations would be.
So the direction I've gotten, and Ms. Call may correct me on some of this, there's a number of advisory boards that have been asked to look at what they're doing, and the same discussion that you all are having. And what we're to do as liaisons is to report back to the city manager on how that discussion went. So I would suggest, and you can make a motion however you want, but I would suggest that let me have that discussion with the city manager, and I can come back to you and let you know how that went, and maybe at that time, maybe that's something we can schedule. Does that make sense?
So are we making a vote on this motion, or are we dropping this motion at this time?
I guess we should probably drop it at this time. And
Okay,
wait
so we'll
until
just
we
postpone
actually
that
have
at this time.
discussion.
Either way, I mean, the way you structured the motion was to, if at some point in time there is a subject that we want to have a council, we want staff to arrange that meeting. And we can do that. It's not, you're not asking staff to do that now. You're just kind of reserving the right to do that, and it sounds appropriate to me.
Okay, then the motion's been made and seconded. Can we vote on that
Yeah.
motion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's all I have.
I just want to share some of my thoughts in regards to what Chuck was just sharing with us about what we are here and why we're here. Unfortunately or fortunately, I think I'm the longest standing person on this board at this moment. And I know that when you first join us, some of this is very confusing about what we do here. Some of the language and acronyms are very unfamiliar to us. And what I'm trying to say is we really only get out of the board, what we put into it. If we come prepared by having read the notes, read the presentations, I'm not saying memorize them, but at least have reviewed them. And if you have questions about what an acronym is, don't hesitate to ask. Because when I first started, I didn't know most of this stuff either. And so what I would just recommend to all of us is each month, prepare yourself for the meetings so that you know what's going to be coming before on the agenda, and you're prepared at least to have some type of conversation in regards to that.
Thank you.
I'll piggyback on that, and I made 3 notes of things that I think this board can be better about doing, because I think that it's great to see this list on paper, but it's another thing to look at it is to say, almost like a self-evaluation, have we been good about doing that? I think assessing neighborhood needs is something that we can be better about doing, and maybe there's a way that we do that would be, acceptable to staff and to us, given that we're volunteers and given our time. I think it would be interesting to see how much more we can, I was gonna say produce, but how much more change we can make happen through just looking at these priorities or these responsibilities and say, how can we make sure that this is, as representative as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
since she mentioned that, that brought to mind one motion I'd like to make. And before I make the motion, I'd like to at least have a conversation about historically what we've done in the past. And it may have been, I don't know, 3 years ago at this point. The city staff had made arrangements to take our board on a tour of the city and present it to us, all of the locations that they have had impact on. And we did that as a group, and we did that at one of our meetings. I would like to make a motion that staff move forward with doing that again for all of us, and inviting council members or whoever else may want to be involved in that tour. But I think that would be very beneficial and would allow us to see the neighborhoods and see maybe the neighborhoods we may need to impact. So I would make that motion at this point.
I'll second it.
Any discussion by anybody? Can we have a motion? All in favor?
Yeah, that's a good point. We did, that was, I believe, I was looking at those notes of that the other day. I believe that was 2 years ago in January.
Yeah, had to be pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID, yeah. So at this, I mean, I do want to schedule another tour. I think it's a great suggestion, Mr. Chenault. And we can do that. I think,
I can modify my motion to when it is possible with COVID and restrictions.
And it may be, we have to check city policy or current operation.
but as soon as we're able, we can schedule that.
A second on that motion then?
I second that motion.
And anybody, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay? Motion carries. Is there anyone else? Any discussion on anything Mr. Lane has presented to the board today?
I think one of the questions that comes to mind is how much we can, we're talking about how much the city staff and manager can expect from this board. I think we also have to make sure that, and it's a point that you made earlier, Chuck, to make sure that everything that we think is a good idea or that we recommend is actually doable for you. Sometimes we might have ideas that, get a little bit out of hand, and maybe that conversation with, city council, whenever it happens, will help as well, because there's a lot to be done, and like you said, there's a huge crisis going on right now, but we also have to remember there's only finite resources, both for staff and for the funding that we have and that we get to allocate. So maybe making sure that, and I think you keep us in line with that pretty well, but just to make sure that we're never trying to ask for things that are completely out of proportion or possibilities, range of possibilities.
Denise brought something to my attention that we talked about recently, that I think is a really good idea. We have, we have various responsibilities within the city that in one way or another can relate to the work that you do, that this board does. And there are not countless, but there are many organizations out there, nonprofit organizations that we work with. And you're all very aware of them. What we could do, and what we were discussing, and I don't know that we need an motion to this effect, but each meeting we have, or close to that, depending on how intense a meeting might be, we can bring one of those groups in to speak to the board and talk to the board about what they do, about the services they provide, the challenges that they're having, and it'll probably be a really good dialogue for you all to have. You'll just meet these people one by one and learn about these organizations more than you do. We have a homeless initiative within the city. Most of the city departments are part of that committee that manages that homeless initiative. Gabe Para has been really the liaison to that committee. Maybe we could start with him coming in and giving you an update on our homeless population. And then from there, you can ask me about groups that, you might have a group that you want to see next, and I can try to arrange that. So that might be something to get you a little bit more engaged, push the dialogue along and really get you communicating on some of the real things that we have going on out there. A lot of stuff that we present to the board, it's plans and reports, and it's a little bit somewhat removed from, what's on the ground. So if you have those discussions, I think it may help the board a lot. So, you like that idea?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
We can arrange that. So, I think we've had some good dialogue. I think if we move on with the, I think you called for some community input, Pete, Mr. Chair. Is that next on your?
Let's see. That's that. We have that. Guess what we've come to? It is time. It is that time of year again.
Well, Pete.
No, did I
Mr.
miss
Chair-
something?
Mr. Chair, I think we're public comment for this item.
Oh, okay, let me go back. Are there any questions or comments from the audience of our previous discussions?
I just have a comment. I just wanted, as you're looking about what your duties are and getting getting a tour of the city, that's great. I'd like to do that as well whenever it's safe. One thing that I'm doing is educating myself on what other municipalities are doing in the area, so that where I think it's important for me to understand what's going on in our city. I'm also informing myself of what's going on in other municipalities, so that my understanding is better informed about possibilities here. I just wanted to make that comment about what I'm doing.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. Is it possible through you, Chuck, to share a habit that we've been doing some work with other municipalities, like Kathleen had mentioned, and we had gathered all this information in one single document about what, each one of the executives belongs to a board for each municipality. So we have doing some work. So we have a document that presents the findings, what we have accomplished, recommendations to the different municipalities, what's possible, not possible. Is it possible I share that document with you so you can share with the rest of the board?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Do that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need a motion for that? No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Then, any other questions from anybody on the board or any members of the audience? No. Then I guess we move on to item 4.1, the election of officers. And it is that time of year again when we need to elect the chair and vice chair of this board for the next year. Ms. Sullivan, can you lead us in the right direction on this item?
I can try. I have nominations for chair, please.
I'd like to nominate Camille as for chair for the coming year.
I'm sorry.
Camille?
Yeah, okay. Are there any other nominations? We have a second.
I'll second. Can I second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now, current chair Scalia, if you'll take nominations for the vice chair.
Is there a motion to nominate a vice chair? We need a vice chair. Who's
Can I
not
re-
here?
Can I remain on my seat as a vice chair? Is that possible?
I'm sorry?
Can I remain on my seat as a vice chair?
I believe so.
I
don't,
Like they're one-year appointments.
are there any appointments? I'm sorry, I don't know each board. So he says no.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
Is there interest? I think in communicating over the last month, I think there may have been one or two that had a level of interest. Oftentimes that vice chair does become the next chair, not always.
I am willing to serve if nobody else needs, if there's no other interest.
Nominate Kim.
Okay. I motion to nominate Kevin as the vice chair for the board.
Okay.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Kevin. Congratulations. I passed the gavel. Does the board have any old or new, congratulations to both of you. Does the board have any old or new business to discuss? Mr. Lane, do you have anything to report?
So I just want to update the board on some various projects that are going on out there. There's some interesting stuff. So you all know, we had a discussion about Prospect Towers a few meetings ago. Directions for Living is actually signed on to be case manager to help these people navigate through these issues. Tomorrow at our homeless committee meeting, they'll be giving us a presentation as to an update. So what I've heard late last week is that of the many, and there were many, I think there were more than 50 people that were subsidized pretty heavily with their rent by a nonprofit organization. That subsidy went away in October. And those people didn't have an answer with the increase they were going to have to pay. I believe that number is down to 6. I believe that's how many people that they've helped. So they're making a lot of progress. We're working on finalizing grant funding to Directions for Living to help them continue, because it's not just the folks that were subsidized. Rent's going up for everybody. The people that are subsidized, they lost the subsidy and the increase, and there was a big gap. There's still some issues out there that we need to help address. And a lot of that's being helped by a project that we have going on right now that's very exciting. 1520 Jeffords Street, okay, it's a former assisted living facility, okay? So a developer purchased that and wanted to convert it to housing. Now, there are different density requirements or density allowances for an ALF versus housing. So 60 units under an ALF qualified, was compliant. Affordable housing, it did not. They exceeded the density by 15 units. So they came to us, and if we certify that it's an affordable housing project and so many of the units are reserved at affordable rates, they could be in line for as much as a 50% density boost. So that's what they've done. And now they're in compliance with a number of units. They're not even asking for any funding. It's a good project. They're fixing the thing up as if new. They're very small units, so that in itself will keep the rents low. And this facility, he doesn't want to designate it for seniors, but he wants to serve that population. And he's made it very clear that he is very interested in helping the folks at Prospect Towers that need to be relocated. So it really turned into something outstanding that helped us on a few different levels. So that's an exciting project. Blue Sky Communities, our former fire station in downtown, Fire Station 45. It's on Franklin Street. It's right next to the police station. A few months back, we talked about a potential tax credit project. 100% affordable project, 81 units. Going to be a 9-story project. It's going to be one of the most attractive buildings in downtown. That project has been approved for the tax credits. The funding is there. So there's really nothing to stop that from happening at this point. So that's very exciting. On South MLK, right across the street from Madison Point, it was a tax credit project. Kind of across from the Nolan on the east side of South MLK. 3.5 acres. We have a developer that's come to us and come to the CRA for funding, and he's going to do 171 units. All of the units are going to be at 120% of area median income or below. I believe, and I don't have the number in front of me, I think it's 100 units or somewhere about there are going to be at 100% AMI and below, and 18 units are going to be 80% AMI and below. So it's a good income mix that's going to help a lot of people. You know, there are people in all of those income brackets that need help right now. We all know that. It's going to be a 4-story project. It's going to be a very attractive project. We've worked with Peter Leach before, Southport Financial. He built out Garden Trail, Woodlawn Trail, Country Club Townhomes. Same developer's doing this project. We have a lot of confidence in him. So it's a really, really exciting project. So right there is 152 units that are going to be up and running in the next year and a half. So that's very exciting. Yeah, I'm off the cuff here. 250, yeah, 252. Thank you, Dean. Right now, we have 3 single-family homes under construction, one with Habitat for Humanity on Tangerine. How many bedrooms is that, Ms. Camacho? Is it 4?
It's, yeah, four.
It's a good-sized house. It was a kind of an awkward lot. It was very wide. It's 10,000 square feet. It's a huge lot, but it's not very deep. So your traditional home struggles to get on there. I think you probably had to do a custom design on that.
Yeah, we did, because it had this gorgeous tree that takes like 45 feet around the tree, so, yeah.
We had talked about doing 2 homes there at one point, but the trees made it pretty much prohibitive. So there's that. We have a project on Pennsylvania with Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services that is, the roof is in, and they're moving right along. Another project on Nicholson with Emerge Community Development Corporation. That's about the same pace as the project on Pennsylvania. Different developer, but the same builder, actually. At the next council meeting, I'll be presenting a contract to donate property to CDC of Tampa Bay, an organization that's been doing some work. Most of the work in their history has been on the other side of the bay, but they've done some work in the Dansville area of Pinellas County, working alongside Habitat for Humanity. They build a nice product, so this is a really small lot, so they really had to do kind of a custom build on this. It looks really good. They do a nice product, so that'll be a 4th going on. I know Habitat for Humanity has quite a few in the queue that you're ready to start breaking ground on.
Yeah.
LaSalle, Pennsylvania. There's a couple on LaSalle. Eldridge, yeah. Yep. Clearwater Gas has 4 lots along Blanchby Littlejohn that Clearwater Gas is intending to donate to Habitat for Humanity. So a lot going on. It's very exciting right now. We can do more. We always can. But I just wanted to get the board updated on those projects. As I said earlier, we'll be starting our annual application process on Wednesday next week. So that takes us through a whole series of meetings that we'll have to get to approval ultimately in July. And then we submit that to the federal government in August. So a lot of stuff going on. Anybody have any questions about any of that stuff?
I have a question, Chuck. Are we tracking, or the city's tracking, I know that you're tracking obviously 120% AMI or lower, or 80% AMI or lower, but are we tracking that bracket between 30 and 60%, which is the most difficult to serve? Do you have any numbers for us?
Well, I know, I don't off the top of my head, the State Housing Initiative Partnership Program has a set aside for 50 and below. So we have to meet that every year. We have to get, a certain amount of the funds have to be spent on that income bracket. So we have to do it there. Right now, we actually have a few dollars remaining in NSP3 money. There's a set aside there of about $93,000 we have to spend on 50 AMI and below. We have a project with Habitat to do a construction loan that will help bring that cost down, because we'll forgive a good portion of that loan, that will allow that person at 50% of AMI an affordable mortgage payment. We're looking at Kimberly Home, I think, to spend down the remainder of that set aside with NSP3 with a housing project that they're working on. It's a rehab project. So we do have those numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head, but we're required to focus on that demographic on some level, particularly with the SHIP funding. Yes, the governor is proposing full funding of the Sadowski Act this year. So we got a projection from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation of what our allocation might be. If that happens and it's fully funded, our allocation would be $1.6 million and change, which is literally 10 times more than our last funded year of $164,000, which is great news. I mean, it's fantastic. Now, it sounds like that's an objective of the governor's. This is his 2nd year in a row he's recommended full funding, or 3rd year. Is it 3rd year? Is this his 3rd session?
Second year, yeah.
So, yeah, 2nd session full funding. As you know, last year it was vetoed because of the pandemic. So hopefully that initiative continues, and we continue to see these funding levels like this. And you know, we may have to ping on the city manager a bit for increased staffing, because with that extra money, now we got to move that money. We get extra administrative money with that, so it would, you know, it's natural that we would increase staff if it looks like that's going to be a long-term thing. Anything else?
Any other questions from anybody? Then,
Sorry, I forgot to write how many units were gonna be at 1520 Jeffords Street.
60.
Thank you.
okay, now, anybody, question? Our next NAHB meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 9th at 9 a.m. here in the council chambers. Before I wrap the gavel for the final time, I'd like to thank Ms. Sullivan for guiding me in all of this stuff over the past year and keeping me straight, getting it right. I'd like to thank all of my fellow board members for tolerating me and my rants. And mostly I'd like to thank the staff, to Denise, Chuck, and he's not here, Gabe, for all of the input that you guys have given me to try to keep me focused and understanding a lot of the things that go on within the city and the red tape and how things actually get done. It's been very helpful to me. So without further ado, I say thank you and see you all next month. Here you are.